Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the M&M podcast. I'm your host, Manasi.
And I'm Mehr. And a couple weeks back, there was a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which killed 19 students and two teachers and wounded several at Robb Elementary School, only a few weeks before summer break was supposed to start. And first of all, me and Manasi just wanted to say that our prayers go towards the families of those affected. Unfortunately, it's the sad truth that this concept of a mass shooting isn't new in the United States.
There has not been a single week without a mass shooting this year, and there have been 38 after the tragedy at Uvalde. This needs to change, and to do that, we wanted to assert the importance of participating and educating yourself on local election candidates, especially those for stricter gun control. But to understand what needs to change, we must educate ourselves on the causes of these shootings. What makes the concept of mass shootings a strictly American concept?
So the main and core attributing factors to mass shootings is how easy it is to get a gun, first and foremost. In Uvalde, Salvador Ramos, who was the shooter, was able to get an assault rifle 2 days after he turned 18. To put this into perspective, you only have to be 18 to obtain such a deadly weapon, but you have to be 21 to drink alcohol. In Texas, you are legally allowed to carry a handgun in public places without a license. This increase in accessibility has led to a lot of leeway regarding, who can obtain a gun. It's easier to get a gun in the United States than it is to get baby formula, and it's easier to carry one around than it is to drive a car.
Right. And yes, we can regulate who, how, and what kind of guns people can buy, but often that is blocked by companies who want to make profits. The NRA, or the National Rifle Association, that blocks many of these reforms, is home to scandals and bankruptcy since 2019. The NRA also heavily funds politicians who stand against gun control and reform. People also feel powerful and safer in this vicious cycle of trying to protect themselves from all the gun owners around them by buying themselves a gun, citing their Second Amendment privilege to do so.
So, after taking all of this into consideration, it is clear that a lack of gun control is the cause of the amount of violence in this country. But there are politicians who argue that, mental health is the core cause of mass shootings in order to put off signing gun control legislation. So while mental health is a probable cause for some mass shooters, it is not a main contributing factor. Politicians cited mental health as the motive for the Uvalde shooting, but Ramos was not reported to have any prior mental illness. There's often, in the aftermath of these attacks, a rush to blame mental illness as the fundamental cause, and that's just not true. When you study these cases, there's a whole range of circumstances, and most of these shooters, have a rational thought process that what they're committing is violence. So we have to acknowledge that no person who commits a mass shooting is mentally healthy. They do have deep problems.
Yeah, and these problems, it's a whole range of problems that are behavioral, circumstantial, and more, and there are things going on in their lives. But even if mental health is the cause, many politicians do not work towards increasing accessibility to mental health or decreasing the price of therapy. And this further increases the importance of looking into the candidates of local elections to see who is working towards solutions. So let's look at some more solutions, and more importantly, how the past solutions impacted the number of mass shootings that happen in America.
Unfortunately, as for past solutions, the issue is there hasn't been that many. Most legislation was focused on banning guns in places such as schools or government buildings, as well as restricting access to guns for felons or those who have mental illness. Most mass shooters, specifically school shooters, are those who have only committed petty crime, and most people who commit mass shootings at school are minors, meaning they don't have a lengthy criminal record. While on the aspect of mental health, the system is pretty flawed, and it's extremely difficult to regulate or restrict gun access to those suffering from these conditions.
And most legislation being passed currently doesn't focus on restricting gun access, but making it easier to obtain a gun. Like we mentioned in Texas, the law that allows people to carry a handgun in public without a license was only passed a couple weeks prior to the Uvalde tragedy. It is really up to a state's discretion to control and regulate the accessibility of weapons. It's regulations such as these that make it so easy for an 18-year-old boy to be able to obtain an assault rifle.
Okay, so we know the causes and we know what legislation has been passed. And here are some things that we as a community can do to prevent school shootings. As for schools, after the Columbine tragedy, the Salem Kaiser School District had a really robust threat assessment program where they look to bring professionals who have knowledge about mental health into law enforcement and juvenile services. And there are educators, administrators, counselors, and they're all working together to determine what's wrong in any case and how they can step in and help before, perpetrators of violence go down the path of violence in the first place. And because of that, they're able to step in before a big tragedy can occur.
The ability of an 18-year-old to buy a gun has been in place in the state of Texas for more than 60 years. Anybody who shoots somebody else has a mental health challenge, period. These are the words of Greg Abbott, the current governor of Texas. Abbott is currently running for re-election. It is crucial that you get yourself involved in your local elections. If you can vote, please vote. And even if you can't, there are several ways to get involved and campaign. We will put links to these in our descriptions for ways that you can help if you're under 18.
Mehr and Manasi are only high school students. Those who were killed in Uvalde were elementary school students, kids who had their whole lives ahead of them. And not just them, there have been thousands of victims of mass shootings and school shootings especially. If us young people can't feel safe within establishments of learning and education, where can we feel safe?
We seriously urge each one of you to donate to the families of those affected. We will put links of those in our description as well.
We leave you with this quote by Elie Wiesel. There are times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there should never be a time when we fail to protest. Let's break the cycle of violence by going out and advocating for change so that children can finally feel safe in havens of learning.
And that's all for this episode. I really hope that after this you will check out the links and try to help however you can. Until next time.
Bye for now.